So something similar on an even bigger scale can happen with AI. It's not the kind of science fiction scenario you see in Hollywood. There, the danger with AI is robots like the Terminator shooting people. I think there is a much bigger danger of a financial meltdown caused by autonomous financial AIs than of a Terminator-style scenario.
Professor Harari, experts like Mustafa Saleyman from Microsoft compare AI to a digital species. You, on the other hand, speak of AI as alien intelligence. Why are you so skeptical?
I'm not skeptical of the positive potential of AI. I agree that it could bring immense benefits to humankind and to the planet, helping us deal with everything from climate change to healthcare issues. But because it's such a powerful technology, it also comes with immense risks. It's the first technology in history which can make decisions by itself and can create new ideas by itself. Therefore, it's not a tool, it's an agent, it's an independent agent, and as such, it can escape our control and potentially even enslave or annihilate us. And, people say that every invention comes with risks. You invent the car, you also invent the car accident. And it doesn't prevent us from using cars. But it does mean that we have to invest a lot in safety. When they teach you how to drive a car, the first thing you learn, at least this is the first thing they taught me, is how to press the brakes. Only then they teach you how to press the accelerator. With AI, we are learning to press the accelerator before the brakes. We are developing this at a very fast rate without having a robust mechanism to ensure that it remains under our control and that we can hit the brakes if something goes wrong. And this is the danger. And I hear people compare AI to previous technologies in history, and that in the end, we learned how to manage the printing press, we learned how to manage trains, automobiles, and so forth. But there are two things to remember. First of all is that AI is unlike any of these previous inventions. The printing press printed our books. It could not write books by itself. Even an atom bomb cannot make any decisions. But an autonomous weapon system, like a fully autonomous drone, can decide by itself who to attack, who to kill. And whereas atom bombs could not create more sophisticated bombs, AI can create more sophisticated AI. So this is the first thing to remember. It's an agent. And the second thing is that, yes, we learned how to use previous technologies, but we always had to go through a process of adaptation, which was often dangerous and costly. When the Industrial Revolution came along in the 19th century, with steam engines and railways and telegraphs, nobody knew how to build a good industrial society. There was no experience in that. So people experimented. Modern imperialism was an experiment in building industrial societies. Many people argued that the only viable industrial society would be an empire that controls the raw materials and the markets needed for an industrial society. It took us 100 years of terrible wars and repression to realize this is not true. Communism and Nazism were two other terrible experiments in how to build industrial societies. Now, if we have to go through the same process with AI, which is much more powerful than steam engines or telegraphs, that again go through this process of empires, totalitarian regimes, world wars, to learn how to use AI, it will be a disaster from which our species may not even emerge. So again, everything that I said doesn't mean that AI has no positive potential. It has immense positive potential, but we shouldn't forget about the negative potential it involves.
What gives you sleepless nights when you think about AI?
And something special is what I said, that it's an agent. It's not a tool. That the very definition of AI, what is the difference between AI and previous all kinds of computer programs? The very definition is that this is something that can learn by itself. It can learn things that its creators don't know. You should think about AI like as a kind of baby algorithm or baby computer that, yes, we create, but we create it with the ability to learn and develop and change by itself. And then we give it a chance to interact with the world. And in the interaction between the baby AI and the world, the AI learns things that we don't anticipate. It comes up with ideas, with strategies that we didn't anticipate, didn't create. So we are unleashing into the world millions and potentially billions of independent agents that are alien agents. They are alien in the sense that they think, make decisions, adopt goals in a way which is different, fundamentally different than us. To give a very famous example, maybe the most famous example so far, with the game of Go. The game of Go, for those who don't know, was invented in China about more than 2,500 years ago. It's a board game, a strategy board game, much more complex than chess. And, you know, for millennia, tens of millions of people played Go in East Asia and explored only certain parts of the landscape of Go, of the geography of Go, of how can you play Go. And they thought, people thought, we know everything about Go. And then AlphaGo, an AI program developed by DeepMind in 2016, defeated the human world champion, Lee Sedol. But the amazing thing was how it defeated Lee Sedol. It used a strategy which was completely alien. In like 2,500 years of playing Go, no human being thought of playing like that. And AlphaGo, within a few weeks of learning Go, came up with it. And this is going to happen in more and more fields. From weapons to finance, we will have to deal with millions, many millions of alien agents that make decisions and come up with ideas that are alien to us. It's not necessarily bad. They can come up with a lot of good inventions, but it's a completely different world than what we have been used to for thousands of years when we were the most intelligent agents on Earth.
AI doesn't question itself yet. Why do you see this lack of self-correction as one of AI's biggest problems?
You know, the self-correcting mechanism is what keeps living entities alive from the level of organic bodies to the level of entire countries. When you walk, there is a self-correcting mechanism. When a child learns to walk, a self-correcting mechanism is when the entity corrects itself. When a child learns to walk, of course, you get feedback from your parents or older brothers or whatever, but in the end, you have to do it for yourself. You try to walk, you make a mistake, you fall down, you learn from it, you correct it, you try something else. This is also the principle, for instance, in democracies. That the whole idea of elections, for instance, as a fundamental mechanism of democracy, is that, okay, you try something, you elect a certain party or politician to lead the country. After 4 years, you say, okay, this was a mistake, let's try something else. Of course, part of the problem for any organism or any country is that its self-correcting mechanisms themselves might malfunction. And therefore, you need several of them to also supervise and correct each other. In democracy, again, this is known as the system of checks and balances. If the only self-correcting mechanism that a democracy has is just elections, this will quickly fail. Why? Because if voters make the mistake of voting into office a populist strongman or a very ambitious politician, and the only mechanism they have to keep this person in check is elections, then very quickly this person can rig the elections, can take away voting rights from his opponents, can take over the media and prevent any other views from being heard by the voters. And we know of many examples from Putin's Russia to now what we saw in Venezuela with the recent elections, that just having elections without any additional self-correcting mechanisms, like an independent Supreme Court or a free media, it doesn't work. And going back to the issue of AI, one of the main questions about AI and about its impact on politics is, do we have any self-correcting mechanisms for AI? Because it is bound to make mistakes, very big mistakes. And how can we correct the mistakes of AI if it's an alien intelligence that we do not understand? And one last thought about this matter is that we've seen in recent years that the democratic conversation all over the world is breaking down. In my country of Israel, in the United States, in Brazil, in certain European countries, the conversation is breaking down. Now, this is very strange. We have the most sophisticated information technology in human history, and at exactly the same moment, people are losing the ability to talk with one another, to hold a reasonable conversation. Nobody understands fully why it's happening, but the suspicion is that the new information technology that we are inventing is undermining the democratic conversation, which is the most basic self-correcting mechanism of democratic societies. If we can't talk with each other, then democracy collapses, and the only thing that can survive in such an atmosphere is either a dictatorship or a civil war.
AI has a huge influence on our news today, with fake news becoming the new normal on social media. Considering these factors, do you think the US elections in 2024 will still be fair?
I think so. I hope so. We still have the ability to ensure that. The main risk is not in the mechanism of the election itself. It's still the checks and balances of the American system are still very, very strong. It's not like Russia or Venezuela. The main danger is of disinformation in the media, which is kind of fueled or supercharged by the ability of AI to create fake images, fake videos, fake news. And this is happening so fast that we still are not sure how to deal with it. You know, you can imagine it that as a kind of a group of people trying to have a conversation, and then a group of robots barging into the conversation and starting to shout. How can you have a conversation like that? If you now go online on social medias like Twitter, it's estimated that something between 20% and 40% of content on Twitter is actually created or spread by bots, not by human beings. Now, this is an unprecedented situation in history. You had propaganda before, that's for sure. But we never had to deal with non-human voices in the conversation. When you now have a conversation online, you cannot be sure whether you're talking with a real human being or listening to a real human being or to a bot.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it doesn't mean that democracy is helpless in the face of it. We have countermeasures that we can use. For instance, we can ban bots impersonating humans. Yes, we can use AIs and bots for various purposes, but an AI bot should never masquerade as a human being, as they do in places like Twitter. And if people say, but this violates freedom of speech, there is no freedom of speech for bots. Bots don't have rights. They shouldn't be part of these conversations. And the other main step that democracies should take is to make corporations liable for the actions of their own algorithms. I know that Facebook and Twitter and all these companies, they say that we are just a platform. Humans publish some conspiracy theory, some hate speech online. This is not us. We don't have the right to censor them. This violates freedom of speech. But they actually shift the conversation away from the real problem, which is the algorithms of Facebook and Twitter and TikTok and all these companies, which deliberately spread outrage and anger and fear because this is good for their business. This is good for user engagement. Now, they should be liable for that. If your algorithm, yes, a human being said something outrageous, okay, this is the responsibility of that human being. But if your algorithm then deliberately amplified it, spread it, showed it to more people, this is the liability of the corporation, and it should be held liable for it.
We need new rules in the world of communication. You warn urgently about AI in the financial industry, where information and valuation play a key role. What could happen when AI starts making its own decisions in finance?
I think this is a very big concern because, if you look at the different areas in the world which AI could become a very powerful independent agent, then finance is at the top of the list. We've been hearing for many years about self-driving vehicles, but they are still not there. Why? Because to drive a car, you need to move in the physical world, engaging with other physical entities, including pedestrians and other drivers. This is very difficult. In contrast, finance, it's not the physical world. Finance is a world of pure information and pure mathematics. Of course, it has an impact on the physical world, but the world of finance itself is just data. So this is the ideal playing ground for AIs, for algorithms. And already today, most people don't understand how the financial system works. Even most politicians and regulators find it difficult to understand. A very, very small percentage of people understand it. Now imagine a situation, which you don't need to imagine, it's happening, that people and corporations and banks, they give AI more and more autonomy to act in the financial realm. And suppose, for instance, that AIs come up with new financial strategies and new financial devices that they invent, which are orders of magnitude more complex than the financial devices invented throughout history by human beings, from currencies and bonds and shares to ETFs and CDOs and all these things. And no human being understands these new algorithmic financial devices anymore. And for a couple of years, it works well. And then there comes a big financial crisis, and no human being understands what is happening. If we go back to the last big financial crisis of 2007, 2008, it started with these new financial devices invented by humans, CDOs, which very few regulators understood. And it worked well for a couple of years, and then everything collapsed, and we still feel the political and social repercussions of the 2008 financial crisis even today. So something similar on an even bigger scale can happen with AI. It's not the kind of science fiction scenario you see in Hollywood. There, the danger with AI is robots like the Terminator shooting people. I think there is a much bigger danger of a financial meltdown caused by autonomous financial AIs than of a Terminator-style scenario.
Considering the increasing role of AI in the workforce, is mass unemployment a scenario we need to prepare for?
Yes, but we have to qualify it. I don't think there will be an absolute lack of jobs. I think we'll see a very high volatility in the job market. Old jobs disappear, new jobs emerge, but then the new jobs themselves, they change very rapidly. So there will be jobs. The problem will be how to retrain the workforce. And the biggest problem would be because of global inequality. If you think about a country like Germany, like the US, like China, they are going to benefit a lot from the AI revolution. So they will also have the resources to retrain the workforce and thereby gain twice, because they will also gain from all these new job created. But then other countries like Bangladesh or Pakistan or Egypt or Guatemala, they will lose the old jobs like textile production, and they will not have the resources to retrain the workforce. So you might have a situation when there is actually a huge demand for human employees in places like Germany or the US or China, and not enough people to fill these jobs, and very high unemployment in countries like Bangladesh or Egypt. And of course, this raises the question of immigration. Assuming that for obvious reasons, there will be high barriers for immigration, we might suffer the worst of both worlds, of a severe lack of workers, of employees in some countries, coupled with very severe unemployment and economic crisis in other countries.
Experts believe that AI agents will increasingly take over roles as personal assistants. We might trust their recommendations just as we trust Google Maps. This gives a lot of power to tech companies. Do the modern gods of the future live in Silicon Valley?
Well, God is maybe going a bit too far, but definitely they have an immense impact on the world. It's obviously on economics, on politics, on culture. I mean, one arena which is also going to change dramatically is culture. And for thousands of years, cultural creation was in the hands or in the minds of human beings. Everything, poems, paintings, theater plays, TV series, it was all created by our minds. Now, with generative AI, more and more of culture will be produced by these non-human, alien intelligences under the control of a very small number of corporations. So they will have not just huge economic and political power, they will also have immense cultural power. And an added problem is that these corporations, they don't represent anybody. Nobody voted for people like Elon Musk or Zuckerberg to control the world. And also, they are based in just, again, a very few number of countries. Most of the big tech companies are just in two countries. It's China and the USA. So after many decades in which we saw the collapse of empires and the creation of a more equal international, not fully equal, of course, but more equal international arena, we are potentially going into a new imperial age in which a few countries and a few corporations control the economy and the culture, and therefore also the politics of most of the world.
Tech giants want to build personal relationships with tools like agents. As coaches, they are supposed to give us tips on relationship problems and negotiate our employment contracts at the same time. How dangerous is this development for our future?
Absolutely. Again, this is a new power that never before did we have to deal with non-human agents except animals that have the ability to create intimate relationships with us. If you think about the previous decade, so by now everybody knows that in social media and online, there was a very big battle between different corporations for grabbing our attention. They did everything they could to grab our attention. But now there is a new battle developing for intimacy. Intimacy is far more powerful than just attention. All kinds of things can grab our attention. But intimacy goes much deeper. If somebody has an intimate relationship with you, they are in the best position to change your views, to change your mind, and to sell you anything they want, from a politician to a product to an entire war. Now, previously, nobody could mass produce intimacy. Even totalitarian regimes, like in Nazi Germany or the Soviet Union, they knew how to mass produce attention, how to get millions of people to listen to a speech by the big leader. But this was not intimate relationship. Now, for the first time in history, there is a technology to mass produce intimacy. A government or a corporation can deploy millions of bots which are able to form, like in the movie Her, intimate relationships with millions of people. And this is an enormously powerful and dangerous new force in history.
Our world is becoming more complicated and complex. Simple solutions are hard to find. Do you think traditional religions, which offer simple answers and guidelines, will have a comeback?
No, religion has always been there in different shapes, in different forms. So it's not a revival. It's a constant accompaniment of every human society. But religion, too, is likely to change. We could see religions, new kinds of religions and cults, managed or even created by AIs. If you think about holy books, like the Bible or the Quran, throughout history, people imagined them to be a non-human technology that represents a superhuman intelligence. Of course, the main problem with a book like the Bible was that it wasn't interactive. Different people could interpret the same story, the same lines in different ways. And if you had a question, something was not clear, the book did not talk to you back. You could say anything you want to the Bible, it never talked back. AI can create or can be a holy book that talks back. And people can develop religious beliefs or religious feelings around these new superhuman intelligences, which would result also in unprecedented religious revolutions.
Religions give us guidelines for living our life. Social scoring systems do the same. In China, people are monitored by technology and rewarded for good behavior. Do you think these systems are the future because they make our lives more orderly and pleasant?
Yes, it's likely that we will see these kinds of social credit systems spreading. The idea there is that you get points for anything you do, and your score influences anything that you can do. Like you threw trash on the street, this lowers your social credit score, and this will have an impact on your ability to get a job, to get into college, to buy plane tickets, whatever. Now, of course, people can see some benefits in this type of system, but in the wrong hands, it could create the worst totalitarian regimes in history. Regimes in which there is no privacy whatsoever. Everything you do is watched 24 hours a day. This was a power that previous totalitarian regimes dreamt about, but could never fulfill. Even, say, in East Germany, during the era of the Stasi couldn't actually follow everybody 24 hours a day. It did not have enough agents to follow everybody around. And even if your neighbors or whoever informed on you, they didn't have enough analysts to analyze all the information. So there was a certain measure of privacy, even in communist East Germany. But today, with these new systems, a government can completely annihilate privacy. You don't need human agents to follow us around. You have smartphones and cameras everywhere, and you don't need human analysts to analyze the information. AI does it. So you can create a system that follows everybody all the time and gives you marks on everything you do. And this basically annihilates privacy and turns your entire life into one long job interview. Everything you do at any moment can impact your chance to get a job in 10 years. This is incredibly stressful and destructive to human well-being. Human beings are organisms. We live by cycles. Sometimes we're very active, sometimes we go to sleep, sometimes we engage in social activities, but we also have times for privacy, for just being with ourselves. You know, even the markets, even Wall Street, goes to sleep. Wall Street is active only from Mondays to Fridays at certain hours. The market shuts on Friday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. If a new war erupts at 4:05 in the afternoon on Friday, the market can react only on Monday morning. And this is a good thing, because organisms need to rest. If you make an organism active all the time, if an organism is excited all the time, it collapses and dies. And we are now creating a system in different ways with these social credit systems, but in many other ways, which forces us to be active and excited all the time. And this is destructive, individually and socially, to human beings.
We are Generation T, living in a time of technological revolution, which is a big challenge for politics. Are there any countries that are handling this well?
I know that two countries which are often cited are Estonia and Taiwan, which had to deal with a lot of, and also Ukraine to some extent, because they had to deal with a lot of, these new digital warfare and cyber attacks, and managed to deal with them very effectively. One of the things that surprised me in 2022 with the big Russian attack on Ukraine is that Ukraine was under intense Russian cyber attacks and also propaganda attacks for years, and managed to withstand them very effectively. So I think it's a good idea for Germans, for Americans, for people to go to the Ukrainian government, to the Estonian government, to the government in Taipei, and ask them for advice about how did you do it? What kind of methods did you learn to resist these kinds of manipulations and pressures?
By 2030, AI could be superior to us. Experts are talking about AGI. That means artificial general intelligence. When do you think AGI will start to dominate our lives?
Nobody knows. Nobody knows what kind of professions or skills will be in need, say in 20 years or 30 years. In 2 or 3 years, yes, there are answers. But like 20 years, nobody really knows because the technology is developing so fast. So somebody thinks, okay, I'll go and be a coder. I learn to code computers because everything is now about computers and I'll have a good job. But maybe in 10 years, AI codes much better than any human being. So you don't need human coders at all. And instead, there is more demand for, I don't know, human philosophers. So my advice is not to focus on something narrow. Focus on something broad, develop a plethora of skills, and especially invest in motor skills and social skills, not just in cognitive skills. The type of jobs that require only cognitive skills, like financial investment, this is the easiest jobs to automate. Anything that has to do with also social interaction and also with motor activity, this is much harder. It demands the type of things that AI at present is not very good at. For instance, in medicine, it's in a way the job of nurses is safer than the job of at least those doctors who only engage with data. If you're a kind of doctor that you only get the results of all kinds of blood tests and whatever, and then you make a diagnosis and suggest treatment, this is just pattern recognition in data. This is the easiest thing to automate. But a nurse that has to replace a bandage to a wounded person or to give an injection to a crying kid, this requires social and motor skills, and this is much harder to automate. So that's one advice, keep it broad. And the other thing is, the most important skill would be to keep learning and reinventing yourself again and again, because no matter what profession we are talking about, it will keep changing. So you will have to kind of relearn a lot of stuff at age 40 and 50 and 60. So how to keep a very flexible mind would be maybe the most important skill. And for that, it's the oldest advice in the book, get to know your own mind and invest in kind of mind practice. Everything from meditation to psychological therapy, anything that helps you to get to know and train your mind to be more flexible is highly recommended.